I'm Mrs. DeVille from Euclid Park Elementary, and today we are in my kitchen because our math lesson today is going to be a baking lesson. We are going to bake something together. The ingredients that you will need include 2 cups unbleached all-purpose flour, 3/4 cup sugar, 3/4 teaspoon baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon table salt, 4 very ripe bananas mashed, about 1 1/2 cups, 1/4 cup plain yogurt, 2 large eggs, 6 tablespoons unsalted butter melted and cooled, 1 teaspoon pure vanilla extract, and 1 cup walnuts chopped coarse, which is optional for those who might have nut allergies. But since it's such a yummy recipe, I'm going to make 2 breads instead of 1. So I'm going to need to double all of my ingredients. So we're going to make a chart for 1 loaf of bread and 2 loaves of bread. The first ingredient was 2 cups unbleached all-purpose flour. If I'm going to double that, I'm going to multiply 2 times 2, and 2 times 2 equals 4, so we'll need 4 cups unbleached all-purpose flour. Our next ingredient is 3/4 cup sugar. Now if I'm going to double that, 2 times 3/4, well, let's think about what that would look like. 3/4 plus 3/4 equals 6/4, because we remember that we add the numerators, the denominator stays the same. But I also remember that 6/4 is a fraction greater than 1, because 6 is more than 4. So I can decompose 6/4, take out 4/4, which equals 1 whole, plus the remaining 2/4. 4/4 equals 1 and 2/4. 2/4 can be simplified if we divide both 2 and 4 by 2. 2/4 simplifies to 1 1/2. So we need 1 1/2 cups of sugar. So let's go back to our chart, and we are going to put in our 1 1/2 cups of sugar. The next ingredient we need is 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda, but we already did 3/4 plus 3/4 equals 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking soda. Our next ingredient is 1/2 a teaspoon of table salt. Well, if I'm doubling that, I know that 2 halves equal 1 whole. 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 2 halves. 2 halves equal 1 whole. So going back to my chart, 1/2 teaspoon table salt doubled is going to be 1 teaspoon of table salt. Our next ingredient was 4 very ripe bananas. 4 plus 4 equals 8, or 4 times 2 equals 8, which means we're going to need 8 bananas. Next, we need a 1/4 cup of plain yogurt. If we are going to double that, 1/4 plus 1/4, well, that's the same as 1/4 plus 1/4. 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 50 cents. 50 cents is $1/2, so 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 1/2, or 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 1/2. Very cool. Now back to our list of ingredients. So 1/4 cup of plain yogurt doubled would be 1/2 cup of plain yogurt. Next, I've added all of the other ingredients that we need because they are all whole numbers. So we can just take each one of these and double them. Doubling is the same as times 2. So we know that 1 times 2 equals 2, 2 times 2 equals 4, 3 times 2 equals 6. 4 times 2 equals 8. 5 times 2 equals 10. 6 times 2 equals 12. So we can use all of those numbers in our recipe. 2 large eggs will become 4 large eggs. 6 tablespoons of butter. 6 times 2 equals 12. 1 teaspoon becomes 2 because 1 times 2 is 2. And 1 cup of walnuts becomes 2 cups of walnuts, chopped, of course. So these are all of our ingredients that we're going to need today for our 2 loaves of bread. Let's get baking. Okay, I have been gathering everything that we need for our recipe, and I think we're about ready to get started. Let's take a look at step 1. Step 1. Adjust a rack to the lower middle position of the oven and heat the oven to 350 degrees. Grease and flour a 9 by 5 inch loaf pan. Set aside. Okay, so I have gone ahead and greased and floured our pans. We're going to go ahead and set the oven for 350 degrees. And let's take a look at step 2. Step 2. Whisk together the flour, sugar, baking soda, and salt in a large bowl. Set aside. Alright, so let's go ahead and combine those ingredients. We started with the flour, and we needed 4 cups of flour. So I'm going to get my measuring cup out, and I'm going to use the 1 cup measuring cup. And I'm going to get a knife to level off the flour, because in baking it's really important that you are precise. And as a mathematician, that's why I like to bake, because it is precise, it is exact. I've got to dig deep in here to get the flour. We have 4 cups of flour. That's 2. I bet you wished you were here to help me with this job right now. It's a lot of fun to bake in the kitchen, and a fun thing to do for a family activity. Ooh, I'm making a mess. Alright, this is number 4. We level it off with our knife so that we are precise and exact. And that was our flour. We need 1.5 cups of sugar. So I'm going to wipe out my measuring cup, and 1 1/2 cups of sugar. So I'm going to first do the 1 cup with my same measuring cup, but I think I need a spoon to help me get this sugar in here. Welcome to my kitchen. Truth be told, I'm not that big of a baker, I'm more of a cook. But for today's lesson, banana bread sounded like a great idea. Maybe 1 more scoop. Alright, we're going to level that off like we did with the flour. So that was 1 cup, and then we need our 1/2 measuring cup. So your measuring cups are each marked. I don't know if you can see it from that angle, but it's marked with your 1/2, so you know that you are getting the right amount. And we do remember from our earlier lesson that 1/4 would work also if we filled it twice. 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 1/2. So there is our sugar. Next we need 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. So these are my measuring spoons, all the way from a tablespoon down to 1/4 of a teaspoon. We need 1 teaspoon. Baking soda usually comes in a little box like this. So we're going to measure that out, level it off, get my knife, I'm levering. That's 1 teaspoon. We said 1 1/2. So then I get my 1/2 teaspoon. Measure that out. And we are good with that. And last but not least, 1 teaspoon of table salt. Use that same spoon. This is all going in together to be mixed up. Try to make that nice and level. And then I'm going to use my whisk to mix that together. Whisk that all up. We're going to set that aside and we're going to take a look at step 3. Step 3. Mix the mashed bananas, yogurt, eggs, whip eggs together in separate bowl beforehand, butter and vanilla together with a wooden spoon in a medium bowl. Using a spatula, lightly fold the banana mixture into the dry ingredients until just combined and the batter looks thick and chunky. Fold in the walnuts if desired. Scrape the batter into the prepared loaf pan and smooth the surface with the spatula. Alright, so now we're going to put our wet ingredients together, starting with our mashed bananas. I went ahead and mashed up our bananas. I know that looks a little icky, but it's actually delicious because they were so ripe and sweet. So we're going to add those to our bowl here. And what is next? Half a cup of plain yogurt. So I have some plain yogurt here, back to our half cup measuring cup. I'm gonna scoop that out in there. Some people don't like plain yogurt, but it tastes very much like sour cream. So if you like sour cream, you probably like plain yogurt, and I think it's technically a little bit healthier for you. We're just following the recipe. Sorry about all that noise. Alrighty. And then our next ingredient is our 4 large eggs. And again, I went ahead and cracked those and kind of combined those because they needed to be combined together. And you don't need to see me cracking an egg. And then our 12 tablespoons of unsalted butter. So when we're looking at our butter, it conveniently has the tablespoons marked right on the side there, and 1 full stick is 8 tablespoons, but we needed 12 tablespoons. So how many more tablespoons do I need if it calls for 12 and I only have 8? 12 minus 8 equals 4. So I got 4 more, and I already went ahead and melted those because they need to be melted and cooled, and add those to our mix. And then finally we need 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So we're going to open our vanilla. Oops, this one hasn't even been used yet. And my measuring spoons, here they are. We find the 1 teaspoon because double check, we need 2 teaspoons. So 1 teaspoon. Be real careful. 2 teaspoons. Awesome. All right, so those are all of our wet ingredients. We're gonna mix those together carefully. It says with a wooden spoon, but I don't really have a wooden spoon, so I'm just gonna use this big plastic spatula. I think we get the same effect. Get everything mixed together. And then we're gonna go ahead and add that to our dry ingredients. Add those just like that, and I'm going to mix this all together, and I will see you back here in just a moment to pour it into our pan. All right, we've gotten that batter all stirred up. It smells delicious. The only thing left is to add the chopped walnuts. We're gonna throw those in and stir it up. Put the batter into the pans, and we will be good to go. I'm wondering, what is your favorite kind of bread? Do you like zucchini bread, blueberry, lemon poppy seed, or banana, maybe cinnamon. I like them all, especially when they're homemade. Okay, let's see how we're gonna do this without making a big mess all over the place. Yeah, that, I feel like I'm doing a cooking show. I guess I kind of am. Like Rachel Ray or Sunny Anderson. Awesome. That is looking good. My neighbor is going to love me. All right, my friends, we are going to smooth that out. Don't worry, my hands are clean. Smooth those out like that. Looks pretty even. All right, I am going to pop these into the oven, and then we will check back with you in 55 minutes. Look at the clock right now and tell me what time it will be in 55 minutes. All right, we will see you soon with some delicious baked banana bread. Step 4. Bake until the loaf is golden brown and a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean, about 55 minutes. Cool in the pan for 5 minutes, then transfer to a wire rack. Serve warm or at room temperature. Okay, so our breads are finished. They look delicious. They smell delicious. I wish you were here to share this with me. So the last thing I want to do before we say goodbye today is I want to go ahead and cut these, and I want to make sure that I cut them into equal size pieces. So the first bread I'm going to cut into eighths, and the best way to do this, I think, is to first cut the bread in half, and of course it's going to be approximately equal size pieces, but we're going to cut that in half, and we know that half means 2 equal sized pieces. We want to get to eighths. So if I split each half in half, what are we going to end up with then? If I cut each half in half, then how many pieces do I have? Well, I have 4 equal sized pieces. I want eighths. 4 times 2 is 8, so I think if I divide each one of these fourths, I will have 8 equal sized pieces. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, this just smells divine and looks so delicious. If you're cutting, make sure your fingers are out of the way. And don't worry, I washed my hands before I started. So there, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal sized pieces. So then we can share that with the family and everybody gets an equal amount. With this one, I'm going to cut it into 6 because I want a little bit larger pieces, and remember 6 are larger than eighths. So that way we can give it to more than one neighbor and they can share them. But I know that 2 is a factor of 6, so I'm still going to go ahead and divide this in half into 2 equal sized pieces. But if I want 6, I can decompose each half into thirds, and that will give me 6 equal sized pieces. So let's go ahead and we're going to approximate. These are going to be nice big pieces, but that way people can share them. And thirds over here, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal sized pieces. So we will wrap those up and share those with our family and friends, and I hope that you will cook something at home too. I also wanted to mention that the tools we're using are measurement tools. So when you are cooking and you're looking at fourths or halves, or we're looking at eighths or 2/3, we can use our tools. And so these are good things to practice our math at home, practice our fractions. We added and we multiplied fractions today. We divided our bread. So even doing something fun like cooking in the kitchen can be math related. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.
Today we're going to do one of my favorite activities to do with 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and that's making a treasure map. All you'll need for this activity is some paper and a pencil. You might also want to have color pencils or markers handy. This activity is a mix of both art and social studies. And our first step is going to just be naming our island. So at the top of your paper, give your treasure island some kind of cool name. It can be anything. I'm just going to name mine Treasure Island because I'm not very creative today. The second thing you want to do is to go ahead and draw a outline in pencil of what you think you want your island to look like. So I'm just going to draw kind of blobby shape like this. Now before we get into making our island look kind of cool, we want to know a few things about maps to start with. The first thing you need to know is the difference between two main kinds of maps, and that's political maps and physical maps. A political map will look sort of like this. This is a political map of Ohio, and if we zoom in, we can even see Cleveland right there in the middle. And political maps are really useful because they show the boundaries of different countries, cities, towns, villages, counties, and the names of the major cities. This is the kind of map that you would use if you were going on a road trip and didn't have access to GPS. It would allow you to see where you could go from state to state or from city to city, different roads you might be able to use, and things like that. So that's a political map. The other kind of map is a physical map. And here's a physical map of Ohio. So already you can see some major differences. On the physical map, it's not showing all the major cities, counties, towns, things like that. It also doesn't show as many roads and things as the political map does. And you'll notice you see mostly greens, browns, blues. That's because the physical map shows the geography of an area. So what you're actually seeing is things like the rivers, and if you look closely, you can see where they've shown slightly different shades to indicate valleys and canyons and things like that. If we were in a really mountainous state, you might see areas where you can clearly see mountains. So those are just the two kinds of maps, and for our treasure map today, we're going to be using the properties of the physical map, so more of a geography kind of map. Another important feature that our map needs to have, and that you might not know of yet, is longitude and latitude, and these are invisible lines that stretch across our Earth. And we can use these to pinpoint any locations on Earth. Lines of latitude go like this. And you can remember them because it's like the rungs on a ladder, the parts of the ladder that you step on. Lines of longitude go vertically. So they would be the side of the ladder. And the way this works is kind of like when you're using a multiplication chart. So this line we're going to call 20 degrees, and this line we'll call 10 degrees. Now, if I was right here on this imaginary Earth, you might say I was at 20 north and 10 west. Now, we're not going to go over why these would be north and west today, but if you look it up, it's pretty interesting. You can also find your latitude and longitude on most smartphone devices. So, back on my Treasure Island map, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to make my own latitude and longitude lines, sort of like a grid system. And I'm just going to make, not a ton, I'm just going to do it lightly with pencil, make my lines of latitude going horizontally across, and my lines of longitude going straight down. And you can just do this lightly so it doesn't interrupt how nice your map is. Now, you're also going to want to label your different lines. So just to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to label mine with letters and numbers. So this is going to be line A, B, C, D, E, and F, and G. And my lines of longitude are going to be number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now I could say to someone, oh, you need to start on the map at 4A. And they would know to start right here. If I said D2, that would be right there. The next important part, and the most fun part in my opinion, for making our treasure maps is to get some landforms on there and make the map look a little bit more interesting. So just really quickly, because as 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, you probably already know a lot about landforms. But just to remind you, here's a few different kinds. For instance, we have hills, we have canyons, we have lakes, and oceans, sand dunes, where big piles of sand blow like the Sahara Desert. We have peninsulas. For instance, Florida in our country is a peninsula. We have valleys, plateaus, glaciers, large moving rivers of ice. We also have canals. We have man-made canals. Woo. And of course, rivers. And buttes. And mesas. Oh, and cliffs. This isn't all the landforms you could possibly have. This is just a selection of them. There are many more landforms than this. Now that I'm back on my map, I can now add the landforms. So I like to start with putting my bodies of water first. So I think I'm going to add a lake up here, and I think a river stretching down to here. Don't worry about coloring it or making it look good quite yet. Next, I'm going to add in some mountains. I think right here. And I'm going to have some sand dunes. I'm going to draw them like this. I think I'm going to also add some glaciers up here near the top of my island. Just make them look like that for now. And I feel like I need one more. I'm going to add some canyons right here. I'm going to draw them kind of like this. So here's what it might look like after you've colored it in. And obviously, hopefully, your coloring is a little bit better than mine. And now there's only 2 things left that we need on our treasure map. Probably everyone knows what a compass rose is, but just in case, Compass rose shows us the four, well, at least the four cardinal directions. Usually looks something like this, and at the top is north, then going around clockwise, east, south, and west. These will be useful for your treasure map because you can direct people what direction they should go based on the compass. If you want to get really crazy, you can make a compass rose like this with both the four cardinal directions as well as the intercardinal directions, which go like this. So just like the normal compass rose, we have north, east, south, and west, and we also have northeast, like a combination of these two, southeast, combining these two, southwest, combining these two, and northwest, combining these. The intercardinal directions just make it a little bit easier to point someone in the right direction. You can use either compass rose on your map. The next and one of the most important parts of your map is the map key. The map key tells everyone what the weird squiggly lines, different shapes, and other things on your map mean. So, for instance, you might have a bunch of stuff that looks like that. Well, what are those? Are they canyons? Are they valleys? Are they mountains? You could write that on your map key so everyone could understand what you were talking about. So I'm going to say, these are my mountains. Anything on my map that's a blue squiggly line like this is going to be a river. My towns, if I have any, are going to be represented by one big dot. And those are going to be my different towns. You can go on, and sometimes map keys can get pretty big if you have a lot of landforms or a lot of special things on your map that you need people to understand. Make sure to label your map key so people know where to find it and what they're looking at. Last but not least, we have the scale of the map. Now, this is probably something you haven't seen before. And basically, the scale of the map tells you when you're looking at the map, if you're trying to get from one place to another, how far it is. So here's an example of what the scale looks like. And if you look at it closely, you'll see that every inch on the map is the same as traveling 1 mile in real life. So if we put this on my little example treasure map right here, you'll see that if I was going from here on the island to here, I'd be going about 2.5 miles because I went about 2.5 inches. If you have a ruler handy, you might want to make a scale for your map because it'll make it a lot more realistic and interesting. There are lots of different kinds of scales. You can see the one on the bottom is 1 centimeter is equal to 1 kilometer instead of a mile. Now that you have your full map, it should look something like this, and we can finally do our treasure part. So find a good spot on your map to hide the treasure. I'm gonna put mine on top of my glaciers up here. So I'm gonna mark it with a big red X. And of course, we need a trail. Make a nice trail. And there you have it, a realistic treasure map. You can make this even more realistic in a couple different ways. One really cool way is to take tea bags and get them wet and dab them over your treasure map. You'll want to use thicker paper though. Try not to use notebook paper like I did. Using the tea bags will make your paper stained a little bit brown, so it'll end up looking kind of ancient or old, or like it's been in a treasure chest for a while. You could also write this out like it's a story. So this could be the treasure map that goes with your pirate or shipwrecked island story.
Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Wojtowicz with Mrs. Kohler, and we are going to read the Grade 3, Week 4 enrichment packet story called Storm Chaser, written by Mary Kay Morrell, illustrated by Brian Floka. See that, Emily? Dad points as he speeds toward the greenish underbelly of a monster cloud. That's the laboratory for a tornado. Really? I gulp. Dad and I have been looking for tornadoes all week from our small van. He opens his window and points across a wheat field. I follow his finger and see a ragged chunk, dark as midnight, extend from the monster cloud. What is it? I ask, trying not to sound worried. A tornado forming, Dad says. I know that tornadoes, or twisters, are dark columns of fast-moving air shaped like funnels that rotate violently. I think of all those pictures I've seen of the damage tornadoes can do once they hit the ground. Pickups turned upside down, trailer houses lying on their sides, barns torn into splinters. Dad loves tornadoes. He's a meteorologist, which means he studies weather for a living. He dreams of thunder, lightning, and twisters dipping down from the sky. As part of his job, Dad drives across the Midwest, searching for the kinds of storms that produces tornadoes. He says tornadoes can happen just about anywhere in the world, but the worst ones happen here in the United States, right between the Mississippi River and the Rocky Mountains, in an area called Tornado Alley. Let's go, he yells. Usually Dad's weather tracking partner is here to take pictures, but he's at a weather convention. I talked Dad into letting me ride along in his place. Dad didn't like the idea at first, but I kept reminding him that science and photography are my favorite subjects. Finally, he gave in, and here I am. Dad turns the van and starts to drive. My mouth falls open. We're heading in the direction of the twister. The twister is now closer to the ground and has thickened into a squat black funnel. Once it hits the earth, the twister sucks up everything in its path. Suddenly, I realize that it's headed straight toward us. Dad sees the fear in my eyes and smiles. It's okay. I do this all the time. We'll just put the probes in place, snap some pictures, and be on our way. The van skids to a halt. Dad jumps out. I follow with the camera and start clicking away. Dad plops down the probes. They look like orange frisbees with pointy heads. Inside, data sensors digitally record the tornado's temperature, barometric pressure, wind speed, and direction. After the tornado has passed, Dad will drive back here, find the probes, then download their information onto his laptop. The probes are tough enough to withstand anything, even if they are tossed about. The data stays intact. The tricky part is placing them directly in the tornado's path, because twisters can change direction within a matter of seconds, missing the probes entirely. With the probes in place and my shaky picture snapped, we scramble back inside the van. Dad grabs the steering wheel and backs up, hoping to turn around and speed away from the tornado. Suddenly, I feel the wheels start spinning hopelessly. Dad switches the gear from reverse to forward, but we don't go anywhere. For the first time in my life, I see fear in my father's face. We jump out of the car and try to push it, but it doesn't budge. Rule 1 of tornado safety: never stay inside a vehicle for protection. A car or truck can be a death trap when a tornado hits. "We've got to get out of here," Dad yells as he shuts off the engine. The fact that he sounds scared frightens me. Rule 2: if you're caught outside with no buildings nearby, find the nearest low spot, like a ditch. The problem is, we're surrounded by flat fields. Then I notice a barn. First, the wind attacks, carrying loose soil. I hear the dirt rush between the boards, flowing around us, clogging the air. Then something hits the side of the building. Something big enough to make the boards clatter like broken teeth. I close my eyes. The barn creaks like it's being stretched apart. Then the wind changes, shifting into something beyond a roar. It charges over the prairie, clawing the roof above our heads. There is a dry shriek as boards are ripped loose. The beast bursts through the newly made hole, roaring into our shelter. It whirls about, tossing dirt and trash everywhere. I wait for the rest of the boards to be pulled loose and tossed into the sky. Fence posts are snapped off and tossed about. Wheat and weeds were yanked out by their roots. Thankfully, our van is still in one piece, but now it sits at a crooked angle down in the wheat field. I snap a few pictures. We search for the sensors. The data is still intact, and tonight, Dad will study it. With this kind of research, meteorologists believe they will one day be able to better track the unpredictable tornado. Being Dad's storm chasing partner has been thrilling, but I think I've had enough excitement for a lifetime.
This is the carbon snake demonstration, and it's one of the first science demonstrations I ever saw that really made me wonder and think about what was happening. What I observed happening seemed so strange and crazy, I couldn't imagine what kinds of science were behind it. It almost seemed like magic. You might have felt the same way when you first made slime. When you first put in the activator and it goes from being glue to being a gross slime substance, it does seem really crazy. And I'm sure you wondered, why did this happen? How could it happen? How else could I make this happen? What other things could I mix in here to make different reactions or similar reactions or better reactions? So today I'll be showing you different demonstrations that you can do at home, but that you can also change up to experiment a little with. You've probably seen this experiment before, Coke and Mentos. You may have even done it at school. All you need is a 2-liter bottle of soda and some Mentos candies, and you get reactions like you see. I wondered why it happened. I always thought maybe it was a chemical in the Mentos that reacted so strongly. But it turns out that Mentos are actually covered in tiny little holes that form bubbles when they're dumped into the soda. You could easily make this demonstration your own by testing different kinds of sodas or the number of Mentos. What would make the reaction stronger? This is one of my favorite demonstrations to do, and it's super easy and super fun. And all you need is water, oil, food coloring, and an Alka-Seltzer tablet. The first thing you do is to fill a water bottle about half and half with oil and water. You can try out different amounts if you only have certain amounts of different things. It'll all have basically the same reaction. When you fill the bottle with the oil, you'll notice that the oil and the water stay completely separate. And this is because they have different densities, so they're unable to mix. And that's what makes this demonstration work and look so cool. It's a good idea to see the full effect to take off the wrapper on the water bottle. And you might want to do this outside because when you're working with oil, it can get pretty messy if you spill. Once you have the wrapper off, you're ready to pick the color of food coloring you want. Any color works, and you can put as many drops as you want in. I wouldn't use the whole bottle, but putting a bunch of drops in works pretty good. You'll notice that when the food coloring drops go in, they also do not mix in the oil. So they look pretty cool when they first go in. At this point, the food coloring has finally reached the bottom of the oil and is starting to mix with the water. This is pretty fun to watch as well. And once it's all in the bottom, you can go ahead and tilt the bottle back and forth and see how cool it looks when the oil and the water stay separate, especially with the food coloring in it. Now what you'll need is the Alka-Seltzer tablet, and this tablet, when it hits the water, will make a lot of bubbles. Once the Alka-Seltzer is in and hits the water, you'll see the reaction start immediately. And it looks like you have your own lava lamp. I think the first time I saw this demonstration was on Bill Nye, and this works easily with baking soda, a water bottle, a balloon, and some vinegar. So really easy to do, and we used 2 different kinds of balloons and 2 different sizes of bottles just to see what would happen and see if we could blow up a balloon. First thing you want to do is put your baking soda into a separate water bottle. And this is to get the baking soda into your balloon. The next part can be kind of tricky, especially depending on the kind of the balloon you're using. This balloon right here is one of those punching bag balloons. So if you can't get it onto the water bottle, ask an adult to help you. Once the balloon is on the bottle, you're gonna go ahead and turn it upside down and shake it to get all the baking soda inside the balloon. This is so that you can activate the baking soda and vinegar reaction while the balloon is on the bottle. Otherwise, all the gas would escape. Once that part's finished, you can go ahead and stick it on your bottle that you filled with vinegar. Now we're using a 2-liter bottle for this one because we wanted to see if it would inflate the punch bag balloon to the point where it would explode. Unfortunately, it didn't end up happening, but it did get pretty huge. You can vary the amounts of baking soda and vinegar to test different reactions. Does more vinegar make a bigger balloon? Does less vinegar? More baking soda? Less baking soda? These are things you can easily test out at home. Remember when testing things out that you only want to change one thing or one variable at a time. So if you want to see if more baking soda makes a stronger reaction, don't also add more vinegar. Do one thing at a time. Once everything's ready, you can get the balloon on top and shake the vinegar inside of it. You want to keep a good grip on the bottle and the balloon because it can knock over pretty fast from the vinegar shooting up into the balloon and making it heavy. The reaction will happen pretty fast, so keep a hold of it and be very careful. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses in case you do get yours to explode. What you're seeing happen is the baking soda and vinegar releasing a gas. That gas is what's blowing up the balloon instead of your own breath. We also tried this with a smaller balloon. It got pretty large as well. This messy stuff is Oobleck. Oobleck is a non-Newtonian fluid, which means that it doesn't react the same way a normal liquid does. So when you don't apply any pressure, it behaves mostly like a liquid. It's drippy and liquidy. But as soon as you apply any kind of pressure to it, it immediately becomes much harder. Definitely make it outside. All it takes is 2 cups of cornstarch and 1 cup of water.
Hello everyone, my name is Jason Levy and I'm the music teacher from Campus International School. Today I have a little song that I'd like to share with you. This song comes from across the ocean over in England, and this song is called One Bottle of Pop. Now some of you might be thinking, what's a bottle of pop? Now in some parts of the country you might know it as soda or some places soda pop, but we're talking about a bottle of pop. So maybe a bottle of Coca-Cola or a bottle of Pepsi or whatever your favorite carbonated beverage is. And here in the greater Cleveland area, we often refer to it as pop. So here's how the song goes. 1 bottle of pop, 2 bottle of pop, 3 bottle of pop, 4 bottle of pop, 5 bottle of pop, 6 bottle of pop, 7 bottle of pop, pop. Don't throw your junk in my backyard, my backyard, my backyard. Don't throw your junk in my backyard's full. Fish and chips and vinegar, vinegar, vinegar. Fish and chips and vinegar, pepper, 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 salt. Now that I've sung the whole song for you, we're going to take each individual section and learn those individually. So here's how the bottle of pop part goes. 1 bottle of pop, 2 bottle of pop, 3 bottle of pop, 4 bottle of pop, 5 bottle of pop, 6 bottle of pop, 7 bottle of pop, pop. So we count all the way to 7 and then we have an extra pop at the end. 1 bottle of pop, 2 bottle of pop, 3 bottle of pop, 4 bottle of pop, 5 bottle of pop, 6 bottle of pop, 7 bottle of pop, pop. Very good. Hopefully you were singing with me. So now the second part talks about them throwing trash in our backyard. So hopefully we would never want to litter in somebody else's backyard, and we would definitely not appreciate it if somebody threw their stuff in our backyard without permission. So that part goes like this. Don't throw your junk in my backyard, my backyard, my backyard. Don't throw your junk in my backyard's full. And so this time try it again with me, and it goes like this. Don't throw your junk in my backyard, my backyard, my backyard. Don't throw your junk in my backyard's full. So if we put the bottle of pop section together with the junk section, it goes like this. 1 bottle of pop, 2 bottle of pop, 3 bottle of pop, 4 bottle of pop, 5 bottle of pop, 6 bottle of pop, 7 bottle of pop, pop. Don't throw your junk in my backyard, my backyard, my backyard. Don't throw your junk in my backyard's full. Now the third section talks about some food, and it talks about fish and chips. Now in England, this is a very popular dish. Fish and chips, so it's battered fish and usually fried, and then it comes with a side of chips. Now it's not like the potato chips that we think of. chips in England is actually more like French fries. And one of the toppings they like to put on their French fries is putting vinegar on there, and so that it gets all salty, kind of like what we think of with our salt and vinegar chips, potato chips. That's how they like their French fries in England. So that part goes like this. Fish and chips in vinegar, vinegar, vinegar. Fish and chips in vinegar, pepper, 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 salt. Fish and chips in vinegar, vinegar, vinegar. Fish and chips in vinegar, pepper, 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 salt. Very, very good. Now that we've learned all three parts, let's put them all together to make our whole song. Ready, go. 1 bottle of pop, 2 bottle of pop, 3 bottle of pop, 4 bottle of pop, 5 bottle of pop, 6 bottle of pop, 7 bottle of pop, pop. Don't throw your junk in my backyard, my backyard, my backyard. Don't throw your junk in my backyard's full. Fish and chips and vinegar, vinegar, vinegar. Fish and chips and vinegar, pepper, 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 salt. Excellent job. Thank you so much for singing with me. One of the great things about this song is that it can be sung straight through like I taught it to you today, or if you have a few people that know it, you could sing it as a 3-part round. Now, if you were to do that, one group, as you are finishing the first bottle of pop part of the song, and about to start the second part where it goes into the don't throw your junk in my backyard, another group of friends would start back at the beginning. So you would have 2 different parts going on at the same time. And if you have 3 groups of friends, you could even do it as a 3-part round or a 3-part canon. And that's tons of fun to see how everything all fits together. So thank you so much for joining me today. Again, I'm Jason Levy from Campus International School, and I hope to see you again. Thanks. Have a great day.
This is CMSD.
I am. Yo soy.
I am Cleveland's public schools.